In the beginning, we see a girl named Emily getting slapped on a busy roadside by her mother. From the situation, it appears that she was watching a guy named Brian walk on the other side of the road and intended to go to him. The scene then shifts to show a flashback from the same day's morning. Emily has a strict mother who prohibits her from hanging out with friends or indulging in any kind of fun activity. She drops her to the school while instructing her to study hard and be ready to be picked up the moment her last class comes to an end. It's revealed that Brian also studies in her college and is quite passionate about music. He leaves the classroom to attend to some urgent matters before she reaches her class. As the lecture proceeds, the professor asks the students to work in the form of pairs, and Emily is almost left alone until her middle school friend Archie comes to her rescue. The young man has a friendly and bubbly personality, and it appears that he secretly likes her. As Emily prepares to leave after her last class, she's mocked by a senior student for still being picked and dropped by her mother like a baby. She ignores the comments and leaves with Archie. However, it appears that her mother is a control freak because she comes across her tuition teacher hired by her mother, causing her anxiety to hype up. Not to mention, the older lady keeps texting her to hurry up and come out to go home. Frustrated and driven to anxiety, Emily decides to ghost her mother and accompany Archie to a college party. Despite her bold decision, she looks extremely nervous during the meal as it's her first time at such a place. Not to mention, she's constantly under the scrutiny of other girls who admire Archie. On the other hand, Brian is seen working on creating a tune after leaving the class, but he fails to get the desired results even after several attempts. His friends invite him to join them at the party, so he agrees after a bit of reluctance. Emily now looks scared to imagine the results of her little act of bravery as her mother keeps bombing her with the texts. Meanwhile, Archie leaves the table to go and greet some other friends when she's approached by the same senior who starts mocking her once again, and the matter reaches to the point of harassment where he holds her hand. As she's been denied social life most of her life, Emily reacts strongly, knocking a bottle to the floor in the process and drawing unnecessary attention. Unable to handle the gazes, she runs out of that place, causing Archie to clean up after her. Once out of the restaurant, she decides to go home looking at the number of calls and texts her mother has been dropping her. It's at this moment that she spots Brian on the other side of the road but fails to reach out to him as her mother arrives there and gives her a tight slap. The older lady goes on to scold her harshly in the middle of the road, causing a lot of commotion and bringing humiliation to her daughter. Brian also happens to watch the scene unfold and remembers her to be her classmate in middle school as well. He once watched her crying hysterically in the empty classroom for scoring low grades in a test. He feels bad for the poor girl being dragged away by her mother. Next day, she talks back to her mother for the first time and asks her to leave her alone, as she's already a 20-year-old grown-up. This leaves the older lady a bit shocked as she's used to her daughter's quiet obedience despite all the harshness she shows to her. On the other hand, Brian gets angry when he finds his mother in his apartment. Turns out that he's also on bad terms with his mother and asks her to leave his apartment. However, she keeps acting like a loving mother, so he angrily walks out of the place. It's revealed that his father supports him financially, but he prefers living alone instead of being with any of his parents. He finally decides to return home after his mother texts him saying she has left his apartment. On his way back, he spots Emily and Archie sitting in a restaurant while working on an assignment, and mistakes their relationship to be that of lovers. Meanwhile, Archie keeps stealing glances at Emily, but refuses to say anything when she asks him if there's something wrong. Later, Archie is seen to be busy with preparing to set up their department's stall for the college festival and greets Emily when she comes to college. Their conversation reveals that he's sure that she won't be attending the festival, causing her to be surprised and ask why he thinks so. Archie tells her that she never attends a function held in broad daylight, so it's expected that she won't be there for an evening festival. Emily is tempted to celebrate the festival and watch all the colorful preparations come to life. She finds everyone talking about the same thing throughout the day and asks her classmate Chloe if it's Archie that she joins the stall set up. Chloe encourages her to do so, saying it's her choice. However, Emily is still getting bombarded with her mother's texts. Archie and his friends are seen preparing for the festival, and his senior Philip looks jealous with the amount of attention he's receiving from the girls. Archie overhears him talking bad about Emily and assigning her the waitress duties upon learning that she's decided to volunteer in helping with the stall. He secretly takes the role assigning list away, before removing Emily's name from the list of waitresses. On the other hand, Brian's friends Ivan and Nick visit him with a gift for his birthday and insist that he joins them for the festival. They find a birthday meal set up on his table consisting of seaweed soup and other side dishes, and Nick promptly takes a bite to taste only to feel nauseated at the rotten taste. Brian reveals that the meal has been placed there for the last 5 days. He's finally convinced to follow his friends to the night festival. As the night arrives and the festival starts, Philip looks happy with their stall's booming business thanks to Archie's popularity. However, he fails to see Emily among the serving staff and inquires with a waiter about it as he wanted her to serve drinks to him and his friends. He angrily questions her classmates about her whereabouts and suspects Archie of removing the girl's name from the waitress duties when the waiter reveals that she was not assigned the duty. Philip is busy arguing with Archie when Emily arrives there, much to everyone's surprise, including Archie and Brian. She's disappointed to find out that Archie removed her name from the volunteers list and warns him to stay away from her matters. She then starts helping her classmates with organizing the stuff at their stall, such as keeping empty bottles in a corner. Doing all this for the first time, she takes time to grasp things and fails to notice her mother's repeated calls. On the other hand, Nick requests Chloe if they can fix a cake for birthday celebrations as well, and Chloe agrees promptly, leaving him confident to wish his friend a happy birthday. When the order arrives, they're disappointed to see the item that looks like anything but a cake, but still manage to get Brian to smile at their heartfelt efforts. The loud celebrations draw their table a lot of attention, so when Brian has to suddenly leave the table, Chloe forces Nick to drink a bowl of alcohol that he had poured for Brian. She tells him to consider the feelings of people around who are invested in their celebration, and were waiting for Brian to drink that bowl until he had to leave. Brian, on the other hand, is seen talking to his father, who wishes him birthday, and the young man reveals that his mother visited his apartment a few days ago. His father tells him not to worry about it, and to tell him if she repeats the offense because the couple is divorced and despise each other. Ivan spots Archie walking between the tables and immediately goes to him, reminding him that they were in the same basketball team once, but Archie doesn't recognize him. This leaves him embarrassed in front of Nick and Chloe, who make fun of his clumsy effort to make the popular boy recognize him. Emily's mother starts calling the college's reception office after she fails to get in touch with her daughter. Her continuous calls irritate the senior appointed there for help, and he has to go look for the girl himself. When he finally spots her at their volunteer kitchen, he scolds her for being irresponsible and to let her mother call the reception office crazily. The commotion draws a lot of attention, making everyone watch them as he shows her his phone where her mother is still calling the young man. Angry and humiliated, she tells him to let the phone ring and not attend her mother's calls before leaving the place. The senior, meanwhile, is even more furious at her attitude, but Archie manages to pacify him. Emily calls her mother after coming out in the open space, and the pair of mother and daughter get into an argument as Emily had informed the older lady that she'd be a little late due to the festival, but her mother still got her humiliated like this. Her mother angrily orders her to leave the college building, immediately stating that she's going to pick her up. Emily gets frustrated and kicks an empty cold drink can that falls a few inches away from Brian sitting on the stairs. Their eyes meet, and soon they're seen conversing, asking each other if they recognize the other person. Emily admits knowing him from middle school, and Brian reveals that she was a popular student due to her high grades, so it's impossible not to know her. Their conversation is interrupted by her mother's call, and Brian gently takes her phone away before switching it off and telling her to follow her heart when she looks anxious. As if emboldened by his words, she asks him if she can listen to what her heart wants at the moment and goes ahead to kiss him upon affirmation. He looks a bit surprised but soon gives in to the initiative, revealing their long-time hidden feelings for each other. Few minutes pass and she stands up to leave, but Brian makes her leave her phone number. Their whole interaction is watched by Archie, who looks heartbroken and leaves silently. It's revealed that he has been with her since the school days when she tried to jump to her death from the school building, and he saved her. On the other hand, Brian looks quite delighted with his encounter with the young girl and keeps thinking about it even after going home. Next day, Archie overhears his group members gossiping as they mention that someone saw a girl and boy from their campus kiss each other. The gossip triggers his painful memory from the previous night, and he angrily leaves there after telling them not to meddle in other people's affairs. Meanwhile, Emily's mother visits her in her room in the morning and warns her to be mindful of her actions next, or she may end up getting locked up in her room. She later reveals to Archie that her mother has extended her curfew time from immediately after class to 9 p.m., and he looks happy for her. On the other hand, Brian is busy listening to his friend Nick's nonsense over the call when he spots Archie and Emily walking side by side and feels jealous. Archie checks the institute's CCTV footage to make sure to delete it if Emily is captured in any frame, but turns out that the couple everyone has been talking about is actually Nick with some girl. No sooner than he watches the video, Nick sneaks into the meeting room while looking for his mobile phone that he lost last night. He's startled to find Archie under the table and has no option but to narrate to him the events from last night. Turns out he met a drunk Chloe on his way out in the corridor, and the drunk girl forced a kiss on him. He ended up getting dragged to the meeting room, but evaded her advances, saying he has a girlfriend. He later had to carry the girl on his shoulder before hurrying away when he heard the guards approaching footsteps, and in all this commotion he lost his phone. Archie finds his misery amusing and returns his phone before his attention gets diverted to a group chat on his phone that reveals that another couple's pictures have gone viral while kissing. He immediately rushes to his class where Chloe is seen requesting Emily to allow her to complete an assignment with their group as her partner decided to drop out. Emily doesn't mind it, but soon everyone receives a text on their phone, and the contents of the message leave her horrified. In the picture, Emily's face is seen clearly as she kisses Brian, but his face is left in the dark, so everyone starts looking at her, which brings her great discomfort, and she leaves the classroom. This all turns out to be Philip's doing, whom Archie had seen standing on the bridge, so he goes to him and tells him to take down the pictures, but Philip blatantly refuses to do his bidding. They end up getting in a brawl after the senior taunts him about Emily kissing another boy when she's been acting as her lackey, and Archie curses at him before giving him a punch. They're pulled apart by the students who heard them fight, and Archie blames Philip for punching him first. As expected, everyone believes the well-mannered and popular guy compared to a troublesome senior. Philip's shouts go unnoticed and he's dragged away by some other students while Emily happens to watch the scene unfold with disbelief. She later apologizes to him for the trouble she caused, but he looks to be in denial, as he tells her not to feel sorry since she's not the girl in the picture. Archie leaves for home, telling them to postpone the day's combined study, so Chloe and Emily go to a cafe. While they're talking, Emily spots Brian passing by the cafe on the road and immediately rushes after him. As he's a few steps ahead, she finally calls him using her phone, making him turn back to look at her. A flashback from their school days reveals that Brian has had feelings for her for a long time, but every time he tried talking to her, his efforts would be interrupted by Nick, and the scared girl would change her route upon seeing them. It finally took them years to have the courage to approach each other. Presently, she reaches home and reads Brian's texts, asking about her well-being, and if she reached home safely. Brian's friends are shocked to see him sticking to his phone and texting someone, which is normally unlike him. Nick is once again troubled as his girlfriend is ignoring him, and as always, Brian and Ivan have to lend him their ears. Emily bumps into a girl on her way to the class and overhears her talking badly about her character with her friend, but the girls pretend to walk away when she turns back to confront them. She's then joined by Archie, and they both work on their project together. She's reminded of the past and how he's been by her side since forever, supporting her whenever she felt nervous or misstepped. He's also her secret bearer, as she told him everything about her mother's controlling nature when he intercepted her attempt at jumping off the school building. Later that night, Emily goes to her mother's office to deliver some documents, but she witnesses her getting scolded by a rich lady. Emily's mother is a coaching teacher, and the rich woman accuses her of not caring about her child's future, as she herself is a single mother, and wouldn't know how important it is for a child to score good grades. Emily fails to understand why her mother doesn't clap back at the lady or say anything in her defense, other than apologizing profusely. She's forced to be shushed by her mother as she brings her home. Meanwhile, her mother's hard life seems to be a reason that she's so strict with her, as she fears that Emily may be left behind if she doesn't keep pushing her. On the other hand, Brian feels anxious upon not getting a reply from the girl and starts sulking. His friends find it strange to see him in such a weird mood, but the truth soon comes out when Ivan discovers his chat with Emily and ends up spitting out the water in his mouth. The trio of friends get entangled in a fight where Brian tries to snatch his phone back from Ivan, while Nick feels confused at the scenario and keeps shouting at them to stop. They're interrupted by Chloe, who came for an interview at the bar, and Ivan takes her initial interview before telling her to wait for the bar owner to give his final answer. From aside, Nick remarks at her wish to get a job at the bar when she finds it hard to hold her liquor. He soon leaves happily, upon finally getting a call from his girlfriend, leaving Brian distressed over his own unresponsive love interest. Archie offers to participate in the badminton competition with Emily on his department's behalf during a meeting with seniors. While his announcement leaves some girls disappointed, he looks delighted to have a chance to spend more time with the girl in the name of practice. Back at the bar, Ivan has to leave the table during the interview with Chloe, and she takes this chance to familiarize herself with Brian, asking him if he knows Emily. Upon his positive response, she proposes to him that they work together for their own interests, as Emily and Archie are good friends, and she likes Archie. Brian fails to respond to her proposition. Meanwhile, Nick rushes to meet his girlfriend at the restaurant she called him, but the poor boy ends up heartbroken as she has called him to officially break up with him. The girl finds him irritating and doesn't hesitate to say it in his face before walking out of there. Emily agrees to Archie's request to join him for badminton, but her mother finds it suspicious and tells her to stay away from the boys, including him. They argue bitterly as she refuses to stay away from Archie, stating all the times he has come to her rescue. Philip looks worried to find out that his post regarding Emily's kissing picture got removed when he didn't take this action. He suspects it to be Archie's doing and spots Emily walking by. Harassing the girl seems to be his hobby as he once again tries to bully her, but this time she doesn't get scared or stay quiet as usual. Instead, she gives him a befitting reply, leaving him shocked. Their interaction is witnessed by Chloe as well, who looks happy to see the girl taking stand for herself. On Brian's end, he refuses to divulge any information regarding the girl he's talking to, while Ivan pesters him to spill some beans. They receive a call from Nick, who expresses his desire to share his sorrow with his friends and invites them to a burger restaurant. He spots Chloe also having a meal there and instantly goes to her, telling her to pay for his phone repairs as she caused the damage on the festival night. But the girl doesn't bother with him, making him frustrated. Emily practices hard for the badminton competition and tells Brian about it as well. She invites him to watch her on the day of competition. Archie also makes her promise to go out with him if they manage to win. However, as the competition arrives, Archie doesn't let her play any shots and keeps taking over her shots as well. While his actions start frustrating her, students also discuss this matter, but they find a romantic angle to it, thinking he's trying to protect her. Among the audience, Brian is also present, who gets jealous to hear people's speculations. He decides to play on his department's behalf when their male player suddenly backs out due to stomachache. After winning the game against their current opponent, Archie tries to encourage Emily, saying she played well, but she looks too disappointed and leaves angrily after telling him that it's only him who played. Later, Chloe also tries to probe her about Archie's behavior, thinking he's being unfair by not letting her play, but she stays mum. Upon returning to the court, Emily is astonished to see Brian in her opponent team. Brian tries his best to strike a shot in her direction, but Archie keeps intercepting her and eventually pushes her back. Emily has finally had enough and throws her racket down, asking him to treat her like a partner. She finally gets a chance to show her skills, striking the shuttle so hard that it helps their team win the match. While it brings their department to celebrate the victory, she still looks dissatisfied with Archie and ignores his calls before asking Brian if he's free the next day. From a flashback, it's revealed that the young man started practicing badminton the moment she told him about her joining the competition. It suggests that he may have talked his team's player out of the game to replace him and help Emily win. Next day, Emily excitedly gets ready for her date with Brian later in the day. Chloe notices her decked-up appearance and the way she keeps checking herself in the mirror and teases her about it. When Archie appears in the class, she's startled to see his bandaged hand, and he reveals that he received the injury during the game yesterday. Emily takes over his tasks as he finds it hard to move his injured hand. He notices Brian's text in her laptop, asking her to meet during the lunch hour, and instantly gets jealous, finding it hard to swallow that the girl is getting closer to someone other than him. So he lies to her that they have an important meeting during the lunch hour and that their attendance is compulsory. Emily has no choice but to agree and postpone her plans. On the other hand, Brian is extremely disappointed with the cancellation, as he was quite looking forward to the lunch date. During break, Archie brings her to have lunch instead of the meeting and pretends to have forgotten to tell her that the meeting is actually after the lunch break. Later during the meeting, she also notices how there are very few students attending it, as it turns out that the meeting isn't so important after all. She angrily leaves the meeting room and confronts Archie about his lie when he follows her out. He tries to justify it by saying he just wanted her to focus on his studies, but she refuses to go back with him and leaves the building. Archie is surprised with her strong reaction, but he's soon pulled out of the reverie by Philip, who happens to have overheard their conversation. The man mocks him for trying everything in vain and says that she won't reciprocate his feelings ever. Archie doesn't pay heed to his words and returns to the meeting hall. Meanwhile, Emily bumps into Brian outside the college building, and he seems to notice her bad mood. So he brings her to a musical instruments shop where he needs to buy some stuff. Emily spots a piano at the shop and tries to play it. Brian helps her play some keys, seeing her interest in the instrument, and together they come up with a new symphony. Archie keeps waiting for Emily in the classroom as he expects her to come back to take her bag that she left behind, but the girl doesn't appear. He finally brings it outside her home. Brian walks her to her neighborhood before they both say goodbye to each other, and she walks home herself. A few feet ahead, she spots Archie waiting for her with her purse, and he comes forward before slowly embracing her. The man intends to express his feelings for her through that embrace, but she fails to catch them and asks him if he's all right after parting with him. She repeatedly tells him to talk things out with her if he's bothered by anything, and he simply nods before leaving. Next day, he feels that she's trying to avoid him as she doesn't let him touch her hair to fix them or talks to Chloe by whispering in her ear. Unable to bear it, he asks her if she feels uncomfortable around him, and when Emily hesitatingly denies his speculation, he invites her to go drink with him as per her promise regarding the match. She agrees, and they go to a bar where Chloe works as a waitress. The girl helps them note down their orders before Emily has to step out of the bar to take her mother's call and assure her that she's working on a project with her fellows. Later, Nick arrives at the bar and joins them upon noticing Archie. He also posts a selfie with the pair of friends on social media, and Brian immediately decides to follow Emily to the bar after learning that she's with Archie. Nick seems to have developed a liking for Chloe, who encourages him not to undermine himself. On the other hand, Archie ignores Ivan once again and pretends not to know him. When Brian arrives at the bar, he also chooses to join Emily's table, and things start looking awkward until a beer challenge is announced. Emily, Brian, and Archie take up the challenge while Ivan looks nervous for his friend, who has low alcohol tolerance. Archie and Brian's rivalry and love is visible to the naked eye, making the competition interesting as they both refuse to give in to each other. Eventually, everyone gets out of the game except the two boys who end up in a tie. By the time the competition ends, Archie discovers that Emily has left for her home, leaving him a bit disappointed as he was hoping to walk her home. Next day, Chloe happens to stumble upon Archie smoking cigarettes in a deserted corner of the college building. Her shock suggests that no one in the college knows him to be a smoker. Archie looks irritated with her interruption and questions if she's interested in him, and the girl doesn't deny it. Brian goes to meet a famous music director who has invited him to meet in a restaurant. He marvels about his journey with music. It started with him taking refuge in music to escape hearing his parents' quarrels. The couple often fought over taking care of their son, and his mother refused to do so, saying she needed to focus on her career. In order to avoid hearing the voices of their arguments, the young guy would often stuff his ears with headphones and listen to music. In the present, he refuses to work with the music director upon learning that it's his mother who referred him to the director. On the other hand, Archie is shocked to meet his old classmate Cooper in the basketball court. It's revealed that Cooper has bullied him a lot in the past, so much so that he considered giving up on life. Anyone related to the past brings out those horrible memories, and that's why he refuses to recognize Yvonne as well. However, Cooper doesn't seem to have changed his ways as he keeps playing foul during the game and pushes him to the ground before offering his hand, but Archie doesn't take his help to stand up. That night, while walking back home, he sees Ivan walking by and asks him to talk. He tells him to pretend not to know him even if they were once teammates, and from Ivan's demeanor, it appears that they might have been good friends as well. Meanwhile, Emily and Brian spend a good day together as they meet for lunch and spend the rest of the day talking to each other, showing small gestures of affection. Her mother looks worried as she's yet to return home, so she calls Archie to check if they're still working on a project, and he lies to protect the girl. However, Emily enters home at the same time, exposing the fact that she wasn't busy with studies. The older lady shouts at her for wasting time and almost hits her until she realizes that her daughter is holding flowers for her, as it appears to be Mother's Day. Emily instantly leaves the room while she's left regretting over her tone. Next day, Archie apologizes to Emily for unintentionally causing her trouble, but the girl brushes it away, saying it's not his fault. However, Brian slowly starts getting paranoid about Archie's presence in her life because his feelings for Emily are as evident as the day. Not to mention, Chloe told this to him herself, and even Emily's classmates ask her to call Archie to check on him, saying he doesn't pick up their call but will surely pick hers. The girls leave after commenting on Brian and Emily's closeness, making it look like she's being insincere with Archie, leaving them both stunned. Later, Archie calls Emily requesting her to go to him, saying he needs her support. Coincidentally, it's Brian who picks up his call, so he hands the phone over to Emily, saying she should probably go to her friend. On Friend's Day, Archie gives Emily a perfume as a gift and forces it in her hands despite her refusal. Brian happens to watch this interaction, so he decides to talk things straight with Emily and tells her to sort her relationship with Archie, as it appears that he holds more feelings for her than acceptable. Emily discovers that Brian also bought a perfume for her that he leaves on the table after finishing his piece. She goes to meet Archie, who invited her to a meal and plans to confess his feelings to her, but Emily beats him to it, asking for his reason to give her that perfume. She hopes it to be out of friendship, but when Archie hints it to be more than friendship, she promptly returns his gift and tells him that she likes Brian. Meanwhile, Nick also gifts a perfume to Chloe, which she accepts after he states his reason to be Friends Day. So she reciprocates his gesture with the flowers that she received from someone else. But Nick already looks beyond heaven to receive flowers from her. After making things clear with Archie, Emily goes to Brian's apartment and apologizes to him for the inconvenience before being invited inside and spending some time getting to know each other. The pair finally confesses their love to each other that leads to a kiss marking the official beginning of their relationship. Later that night, Brian walks her home, but they're stunned to find Emily's mother standing outside the home, and she strictly orders the girl to follow her inside. The older lady snatches her phone away and locks her inside her room after scolding her harshly, and for the next few days, Emily doesn't go to school. Chloe, who has slowly become her best friend, looks worried for her as the girl doesn't seem to be picking up calls either, so she asks Archie about it, but he also looks clueless. Brian's condition is no better as he locks himself up in his apartment upon failing to contact her, but his friends convince him to attend classes at least. He's approached by Archie, who wishes to know if he's in contact with the girl, and hearing his negative response, he blames him for all the problems that Emily might be facing at the moment. They both end up having a serious argument. Emily's mother finally gives in to let her go to college after she refuses to eat consecutively, but she places the condition that her activities shouldn't affect her studies. She also returns her phone telling her to pick up the calls whenever she calls her, but Emily feels suffocated at the idea of being treated like a kid again and angrily slams her mobile phone on the ground after reaching the college. She decides to change her outlook to mark her new beginnings and stuns almost everyone with her new look. She's warmly welcomed by Chloe, who finds her new avatar endearing and hugs her out of happiness. On the other hand, Archie rushes to meet her upon hearing that Emily is back, but he finds her standing with Brian as the couple chats happily. A jealous Archie is left behind as Brian and Emily walk out of the college building in the rain and spend the rest of the day together making up for their days apart. She assures Brian that she's all right. Upon returning home, she tells her mother not to bother about her style choices as long as she's managing her studies well. Next day, when Emily goes to submit her assignments for the last week to the professor, she reveals that her assignments have already been submitted. It doesn't take her rocket science to guess that Archie submitted her assignments, so she strictly forbids him from doing things that she doesn't ask him to do. Archie fails to understand why she's being like this, so Emily explains that she feels uncomfortable and controlled with his actions, similar to how she feels around her mother. Whether right or wrong, it's her own choice to make decisions for herself, and Archie's actions make her feel obligated towards him. Archie forcefully holds her back from leaving and confesses his feelings to her, saying he also feels uncomfortable with her around others. Emily leaves in disbelief upon his obsessive words, and they fail to notice that once again their interaction is recorded in Philip's phone camera. Next day, the video is viral around the college with Emily's face once again in light and Archie's back. Her classmates express their concerns for her, asking if she's all right, and only then does she discover about the existence of the video. Archie confronts Philip in front of other students and tells him to take down the video, but when the senior refuses to do so, Archie punches him square in the face, eliciting gasps of horror from the surrounding students. Emily worriedly tells him to deny being the man in the video, but he leaves without saying anything. Unlike the previous times when Emily used to be scared of confronting this senior, Emily threatens Philip to delete the video from social media forums, or she'll lodge a complaint against him with the police. The threat works, and Philip deletes the post. Later that night, Emily goes to a club for the first time with Brian and his friends and finds the experience exciting. She enjoys the loud music, dance, and lights until Brian leaves for the bathroom. She's amused to overhear Nick trying to convince Chloe to be his girlfriend. The boy insists that he has fallen for her while Chloe doesn't believe him, thinking he's being dramatic. Things change when suddenly Archie arrives there and drags her out of the club against her will. Once out of the building, he confronts her for choosing to come to a place as cheap as a club and questions her reason, stating she wasn't like this earlier. They get into a heated argument, and Archie exclaims how her mother is right to always keep her on a leash as she doesn't deserve the freedom. Emily is left shocked to hear him and angrily returns the statement, saying he's just like her mother, controlling her against her will. Their conversation is interrupted by her mother, who probably came with Archie and looks horrified to find her daughter at a club. She instantly takes Emily home. By the time Brian and his friends come out to look for Emily, she's already gone, and Archie watches his love rival smugly, but Brian doesn't give him the satisfaction of watching him in distress. Instead, he challenges Archie to do whatever he can, stating he'll never be able to reach Emily. On the other hand, Emily's mother frantically tells her to sign the admission form for a university abroad. She keeps saying that she can't let her daughter repeat the mistake she made. It's revealed that she's a single mother with Emily's father nowhere in the picture, so the pair of mother and daughter always struggled with living an honorable life. For her daughter to live a good life, the older lady has been pushing her to strive extra hard for excellence and achieve an honorable life based on her academic excellence. However, Emily finally bursts out crying and tells her mother that she's been doing everything on her demand, but she tells her mother to stop caring about society and think about her daughter once, saying they can be enough for each other. The young girl announces that she wishes to live for herself for once and locks herself in her room. The pair of mother and daughter spend the night crying in their own rooms as her mother is reminded of Emily's first day at school. Both the mother and her daughter were excited for the little girl's new journey, but she overhears the school's principal talking to someone expressing his dissatisfaction with having to admit the girl in her school. His reason was Emily's absent father, and that was the moment when her mother decided that in order for others to accept her daughter, Emily had to be extraordinary. On the other hand, Brian walks back on his way to the apartment and gets a call from his mother. He shouts at her to stop calling him and focus on the career for which she left him. Meanwhile, Archie also has a nightmare from his past where he used to bully some students on Cooper's instigation to stay in his good books. His turning point came when a boy named Ronald tried to take his life and was barely saved with Archie's timely appearance. However, the boy blamed him for being no less than Cooper, and the incident still haunts him to this day. Starting the next day, he starts avoiding Emily as he realizes that this chapter of his life needs to end here. Brian also finally forgives his mother as the older lady begs for his forgiveness, and the pair of mother and son have an emotional reunion. Emily regrets talking back to her mother and goes to apologize to her. She sits outside her room and confesses that she's always felt proud of being her daughter, except wanting a little more freedom. The girl apologizes for her misbehave, prompting her mother to open the door for her. They hug each other, and the older lady also promises to care more about their own happiness, instead of letting the society rule her decisions. Things improve between them, and her mother approves her new look during the breakfast, saying she indeed looks prettier in this style. Everyone finally gets to the good part of their life, except Archie, who looks disturbed regarding the incident with Ronald. That is until he meets Ivan, who tells him that he met Ronald some days ago, and the boy relayed his thanks to him for saving his life that day. Archie finally feels light entering his life, as all the ugly chapters of his life are closed now, and he can start afresh. He decides to focus on his own life for the better. A few days later, Brian and his friends attend their seniors concert with their girlfriends. As messy and childish as Nick can be, he gets jealous to see Emily holding hands with Brian and tries to show his hands to Chloe, but she intentionally ignores him. The concert gets delayed due to the bad weather hindering their seniors' timely arrival, so Brian and his friends are invited to sing a song. The series comes to a happy beginning as the youngsters entering their 20s sing a song that is well liked by the audience, and Emily laments how finally things are falling back to their place.